The essential part about setting this up properly is to have everything on the left side of the keyboard. I guess there are two bad methods and two good methods. This is so easy to practice, yet so important during the game. Let's talk a little bit about the Shift, Ctrl and Alt key. There is also this Ctrl+C button that not many people use. And all tanks are dead. There is a trick with lurkers where you can actually make them burrow faster. How to bind mess like that? Hello guys, so today we are gonna talk about mechanics. I think this topic is extremely misleading for many people. A lot of them don't really know what they are talking about when they use this term. This is kind of like this buzzword that is covering a lot of different areas in StarCraft. And today I'm gonna tell you my thoughts about it, like my definition, let's say, and what really comes into this term, and the most importantly, how to practice and how to improve mechanics. So let's get started. As a definition, I would say mechanics is all about efficiency and speed over your mouse clicks and keyboard usage. And that's pretty much it in case of like the definition. But where people go wrong with it, I think, is where they think that your micro or macro can depends on mechanics. While it's true, it's connected to it. It doesn't necessarily mean that with bad mechanics you cannot have good macro or micro, because how it works is actually, I can give you an example where you can have a good idea what to do in a fight, but you do it poorly. So in the end, the outcome of the fight will be very bad for you. But on the other hand, you can have no idea what to do in the fight, but you are actually good mechanically, and you will do the fight well, because your opponent can make some mistakes, for example, and in the end, you are superior. The same with macro. Just because you have good mechanics, it doesn't mean you will necessarily have a good macro, because macro is also about remembering things, having good habits and stuff like that. So StarCraft is like a game of many different skill sets, and that's why we love it so much. So for many people, mechanics is carrying them in the game, while for others, like myself, I consider myself not like mechanically gifted players. We fight with StarCraft all the time, but in the end, all things considered, you have to take into considerations all those skill sets that make you a player, and this is like overall MMR of yours in the end. So mechanics is something you can surely improve, and there are some ways to do that. So to name a few things that determine good mechanics, those are, for example, first of all, everything you do in StarCraft has to be more or less comfortable for you. So don't copy brainlessly other people's setup just because they told you to use something. Always try things and actually use hotkeys, for example, that are suitable for you. Of course, many players will already have an idea what works for them or not, or what was tested throughout the years and what's pretty good or pretty bad. But in the end, don't use something that is just completely uncomfortable for you. So the next thing would be your mouse precision, where you cannot have good mechanics if you cannot click on things. So there are ways to improve that, and I will show you how to do that. The next thing is efficiency of your actions. So everything you do in StarCraft, like every part of a game where you want to achieve something, it can be whatever. It can be binding your units, realigning your production, or sending your workers to mine in different bases, whatever. You can do it in many different ways, and there is always like the most efficient way to do that. So I will also show you some examples how to do some things efficiently. So the next thing would be like knowing your interface options. Like a lot of people don't even know how to use Shift, Ctrl or Alt key properly. They don't even know that Ctrl+C exists and things like that. I will also try to cover everything I know. So after this video, you can start incorporating those things into your own gameplay. And the last thing that is the most important is actually creating good habits in your gameplay. So what I mean by that is every time you encounter something that feels uncomfortable for you in your own gameplay, you have to think about ways of actually improving that for yourself. So I don't know, if you are, for example, scrolling your screen a lot during the game, especially early phases, you should think about ways of eliminating that from your play. And this is exactly what I'll be covering in this video. So I will give a lot of examples for Terran, Zergs, and Protosses. So yeah, let's get going. So let's start with mouse precision. The first thing you should do after installing Windows, pretty much, and this will be helpful for any other game you play, is to go to your control panel, go to the mouse properties, click on the pointer options tab, and disable this enhance pointer precision setting. All it does is to add acceleration to your mouse, which is pretty bad. I know some people still play with the setting on, but to be fair, I have no idea how can you use that. Like, because the thing it does, it makes your mouse movement inconsistent. So if you move your mouse 1 centimeter on your mousepad quickly, it will move further than if you would do it slowly. So in my opinion, something like that is unacceptable, and I always disable this when I'm installing new Windows. The next thing that you can do to improve your precision is playing this UMS 182838. This is pretty good. I already made a video about it, by the way. It was one of the first on the channel. This is how I do my every warm-up. So before my every session of StarCraft, I actually do one of these. And nowadays, I'm not happy if I cannot beat this without losing any life, but for starters, you should be able to at least kill Link's level. So yeah, just do it every time you are starting your StarCraft session, and that's good enough to practice. Another thing you shouldn't do is to box select single units. So while you are playing StarCraft, like for example, you have those SCV making, and now you want to do something with your tank, don't box select the single tank. Click on it, like click on things. If you want to select single thing, click on it. That's much better. Sometimes when the SCV is like moving, it's of course easier to grab selected, but when it's standing, it's actually like much easier to just click on things. So try to click on things as much as you can. It doesn't have to be used always. Myself, I think I have this habit that I always box select my SCVs, but when I'm going and grabbing my tanks, or any unit I want to use, to be specific, I just click on them. It's much better. It's actually faster to do that. And you practice your precision at the same time as well. So that's, I think, a good thing to do. Let's jump to the hotkeys. Not only the interface hotkeys like we see here, but also camera and unit hotkeys. Let's start with this one. So I already made a video about it, so you can check it out for details, but the essential part about setting this up properly is to have everything on the left side of the keyboard. Or if you are using mouse with left hand, I guess, then the right side of the keyboard would be better for you. Probably, I don't know, but you have to figure it out yourself. But the important part is to have everything on the one side of the keyboard. So for example, my tanks, Siege and Unsiege are ED, Mines are E, Steam is T, etc. Everything on the left side. Okay, so let's talk about camera hotkeys, unit hotkeys, and start also introducing habits. So look, that's my 13 scout in TVP. Every game, what I do is when my SCV goes to the scout, I shift F4 my choke location and shift F3 my natural. This way I already have my hotkey set up, so this is usually when the fight is gonna happen. The F4 and F3 is throughout the whole game pretty much now binded to my natural. And thanks to that, whenever there is like any action, I'm fighting on the map or anything like that, I'll be able to just quickly go and put down my CC because it's already binded to the correct spot. So now, for example, I forgot to set down my barrack rally, right? So I press F4, right click, and that's it. I only had to press button, 0 camera movement, and this is why this is so important. All those habits is what makes you mechanically a good player. Okay, units and buildings hotkeys. So this is what I use. This is my way of doing it. This is comfortable for me. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to use exactly the same setup. But I want to give you some baseline to work with, and maybe you will like it and use it, but only do it if this is actually comfortable for you. So my system is that I don't use one setup for the entire game. What I do is in early game, like I just mentioned, I use F2 for my main, F3 for net, and F4 the choke point, or where the fight is gonna happen, whatever, that where I rally my marines usually. And then, of course, for 1, this is my scouting SCV usually, or something that is very important at the moment. So it might be like Goliaths chasing observer in the main, or Marines chasing observer, or Vulture being somewhere on the map, something like that. Then 2 and 3 are my CCs. 4, 5, 6, my production buildings. Usually it goes up to 8 in later stages, but this is like the phase of the game where I bind my CCs is usually where I don't have so many production buildings yet. So for like 7 and 8, actually even 6, nowadays, I changed it a little bit. So 6 is no longer usually production building for me, so I can even fix it right there. Because 6 is usually my machine shop, for example, or academy. This is how I do it nowadays, because I just like to be able to check my progress on the mines, or my vulture speed, or siege, or whatever, and being able to just instantly make it as well without losing track of my units on the screen is extremely important for me. So this is something that I improved over the course of like 1 year or something, because this is actually probably written 1 or 2 years ago. So for mid game, F2, main F3 nat, F4, choke point, or my rally. Usually this is the same place, to be fair, so it doesn't really matter how you view it, but the important thing is F4 should transfer you to your units, because you will almost never have them like binded on your rally or your choke. So that's why this hotkey is for me extremely important. It could be also like your another CC if you went some extreme greed strat, like against 12 Nexus, for example, you went mine triple, so you only make 1 factory mines and then 3 command centers, and then might be your command center, for example. Whatever is comfortable. Then 1 to 3 usually units. I don't bind my CCs anymore, so I build my SCVs from my camera hotkeys. Then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is production. So for example, when I attack in TVP, I have my vultures on 1, my tanks on 2, and my Goliaths on 3. I have my Goliaths on 3 in this case because I try to have the same setup for every game. So for example, in TVP or TVT, my anti-air units will be on 3 every time. That's why I prefer to have like tanks on 2 instead of Goliaths on 2, for example, because then later on when I have 2 groups of vultures, I will use second hotkey for vultures as well, but my tanks will go to 4 and 5, but my Goliaths always stay 3. So this is how I came up with it for myself, but you can of course use whatever you like. And 09 scanners. This is pretty no-brainer for Terrans. I would be surprised if someone doesn't use that. I heard of people who use like 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 scanners, but that's a little bit crazy to me. But if you like it, then go ahead with it. So during the stages I produce by tapping double 4, that's true as well. So I double tap 4, then I go to my production, and then I build from the screen. This is how I do it. Also, binding my production is extremely important to set my rallies, because when I'm doing those 5 fact pushes or 6 fact pushes, then my factor also goes to 9 in this case. Then I can quickly switch my rally points by pressing like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 9 even, and I can have my reinforcements right there in a fight, usually vultures. So that's very comfortable. You don't have to use camera hotkeys to change the rally points. Yeah, and in the mid game I produce workers with F2 and F3. In late game, this is completely changed right now, because in late game I have my F2 on production. So to produce my units, I press F2, Then F3, usually in the late game, I don't actually use that much, but F3 is very useful when you are escaping storm drops, for example. So you get storm drop to your third base, you can press F3 and go back to your natural. And you have a space or place to drill to. So that's very useful still, even though I don't use it that much. And F4 is my rally. It doesn't have to be any choke point at this point. It can be other base, for example, or anything like that. Wherever I currently choose to rally my units to, this is gonna be F4 to me. And I don't bind buildings anymore, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 is my army. Sometimes you go up to 6. It's rare, but it can happen, especially in PvP. If you are max, sometimes you need 6 hotkey. Some people also use vessels on this hotkey separately. I put my vessel on 3 with my Goliath, which is bad idea, by the way. I do that but because it's comfortable for me, but it's not necessarily that good. I don't consider this being like a very good way of doing that, because then when you move your units on 1A to A3A, your vessels will just go forward. And we don't like that, but well, it's a habit that it's hard to change for me, so that's why you should build good habits from the very start. And, of course, a lot of scanners. Okay, let's move on to another topic. Next on the list is setting up rallies. This is the same for Terran and Protoss, pretty much, because we will have our buildings ideally on one screen. It's a little bit different for Zerg, but Zergs should have their hatcheries binded, and then in a lot of cases, this will be like one of the methods used for Terran and Protoss will be suitable for Zergs as well. Okay, so the worst possible thing you could do, I guess there are 2 bad methods and 2 good methods. So let me show you 2 bad at first. So what you can do to set up rallies is you scroll the screen like that. And this works, right? You have every rally set, but this is extremely time consuming. So I wouldn't consider that done good mechanically. Another setup is people do it like that. They use minimap. This is also like more or less correct. I mean, it's better than previous method, I guess, especially if you want to rally somewhere else on the map, not to your NAT where you can scroll quite quickly, but still it takes a long time. But this is just very imprecise. That's the problem, because you can end up with your units not being even rallied on the same screen, which is very bad. I don't like that. I don't use this method ever. So the best methods are, first is exactly what I say during binding section, which is you have your gateways on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Protoss can go to 9, 0 as well pretty easily because they don't have scanners. And then you press like, so you have your choke on F4 and then you go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And every unit is in the same spot even. So that's pretty good method number 1. And number 2 method, I got attacked by the CPU's DT, so I had to deal with it. Anyway, the method number 2. So this method you should use when you have a lot of gateways and you cannot bind them, or barracks or factories, and you cannot bind them anymore to your hotkeys. So what you do in this case, you have your F2 on your production, F4 on anywhere you want to rally to, and then what you do is press F2, left click on the gateway, F4 right click, F2 another gateway, F4 right click, and you do it like that. And if you get good at it, you can do it very, very quickly. So now everything is re-rallied. We can do another test. So we see that every gateway is pointing here right now. So if you actually get a lot of practice with it, you can really make it quite fast. Like, as you can see, I did it pretty quickly because I trained it so much. So this is something you can train in single player even. And this is a very useful skill to have. Another very important trick to use is to track progress of your units using your production binds. So let's imagine I have my vulture upgrades going and I'm doing my two fact push. So first of all, I will move command my SCV to the tank. Then I'm rallying to my tank and making vultures from my 4 and 5. So I go like 4W, 5W because vulture is on W in my case. And this way, every time I have money, of course I'm using cheats in this example, but so I have a lot of money, but usually you need to make SCVs as well. So I can track my units progress, and thanks to that, I know when I have to queue up my next units. Then I can grab my vultures, Ctrl+2, this is on my 1, so now I have vultures, I can place 6, look how advanced are my mines, and during fighting I can still hit like 4 and 5, and I know that I have to make units right now, without looking away from those units, and I can micro during that. And because I have those vultures rallied to my tanks, they nicely come and reinforce my units. And now again, right, my vultures are about to be done, so I press 4, 5 and make my units. And I can micro without ever looking away. If you add like F2, press STV 2 times, I go back to my units, build vultures from bind again, and just micro, and I focus on those units all the time. So I barely ever looked away just to make my STVs for a moment. And that's it. And now I know my vultures are done, and I can grab them and just use them because they come to me. So yeah, that's very, very useful. Okay, that's probably my favorite, or one of my favorites. This is about producing from hotkeys. So what you can do is to literally grab your notepad, and you want to train, in my case, because I have vultures and marines on W, that's why I use one key for those both units, that's very important to me. I can train my 4W, 5W, 6W, 7W, 8W. And that's it. Like, this is so easy to practice, yet so important during the game. At the beginning, you can of course like look at your keyboard, just do it slowly and precisely. Like that, train it a little bit, and then try to do it without looking at the keyboard. So if you can do it very, very fast, like I already trained my fair bit with it, so look how quickly I can do it. And during the game, when I'm walking with marines, for example, in TVZ, I don't have to ever look at my base, because I literally can go like that. If I'm playing 5 racks, or if I'm playing 4 racks, then yeah, something like that. That's super, super important. And of course, for Zerg, it would be like 4SH, 5SH, 6SH, 7SH, and so on. And as you can see, I cannot even do it well because I'm not used to that at all. I never trained it, and the muscle memory is not here. So it's actually pretty hard for me to do. I know some people use 2 hands to do that, because then you can use one hand to press 4S, and then the right hand does the H. I think Hayek plays like that, but I'm not sure. Yeah, anyway, yeah, this is not easy for me, but that's how Zerg should learn their macro. And also for Protoss, obviously, like something like 4Z, 5Z, 6Z. Yeah. I put my zealots on W for this reason, because again, like I cannot even do it efficiently. I'm not used to that at all. For dragoons, it's even worse because D is under 4, so it's actually hard to do. So yeah, if I were playing Protoss at this point, I would probably consider changing the hotkey from dragoons, but yeah, this is how it should train it. So what it translates to in a game is that I can now attack with my units, and during that I can clearly make my vultures. So as you can see, I have vultures on my every factory building, and I never went back to my base to do that. Now I can do it again, and now I can re-rally everything. And without ever looking at my base, I made 5 vultures and I rallied them here. So yeah, they are going now. Yeah, that's super important. This is the biggest skill you can learn, or the most important skill you can learn to make your 5 factory pushes work like a charm. Let's talk a little bit about the Shift, Control, and Alt key. So let's start with Alt key. And imagine I have a situation where I want to transfer those SCVs here. But in the meantime, I would like to do some other action. So what I can do is to right-click on this mineral, do something, then press F2, Alt key, and press on those SCVs. And now they will be reselected. And now I can split quickly. to achieve like better mining in my natural. So how Hotkey works is that whenever you had something selected like this group, and now I will select something else. Now when I press Alt and press on one of those units, this last group where this unit was selected with will be all selected. So for example here, I have this group of units. Now I want to do something with this group of marines, and now I press Alt, I press on those marines, and only these are selected. So I actually use it only for this one situation with transferring SCVs, but it might be useful for you if you find some other usage for it. Now Shift key. So except that Shift key can queue up commands for us and just make this marine walk forever if we shift click with patrol. Like this is actually not what's important in this video, so I won't cover shift usage like that. But the important part is with binding. So you can select those two marines. So that's my group number 1 and that's my group number 2. I can select those marines and press shift 2, and now those marines are selected with this group. So I can add stuff to my marine group. Thanks to that, I can also deselect with shift. So like that, this is my 2, now I can press click, and now Ctrl 2, and now it's not, those two marines are not with this group anymore. Let's imagine my marine count grows, and now I would like to have my medics on 3 and my marines on 2. What I can do is, I don't touch group number 1, but I can press 2, Ctrl, click on medics, now only medics are selected. Now I press Ctrl 3, I go to my second group, now I press Ctrl on marines, I go to my marines right here, shift, box select, and press Ctrl 2. And now those groups are nicely separated, just like that. There is a common scenario in TVZ where you fight mutas, and you have situation like that. So you have some marines here and some here, and mutas will kill your marines. So let's say you go down to 5 marines on this hotkey. And now what you can do is to either control click on these marines, and put them on Ctrl 1, then Control click on medics and put them on Ctrl 2. But also what you can do is you can do it by this interface, and it's also very fast. But so you can press 2, Control click on marine, Shift 1, then 2, Control click on medics, Control 2, and now you have them separated as well. And I didn't do anything on the screen, it was all done by this interface. So if you know how to use Control, Shift and Alt is not that common, but especially Control and Shift is very important to use how they work properly. You can also use Control and Shift in combination. Like for example, I want to add marines to this medic group right now. I press Control and Shift and click on my marine, and now they are added to this control. When, of course, now I have them selected. So now I press Ctrl 2 and I have nice 2 groups. So yeah, learn that and use it. It's very, very important. There is also this Ctrl+C button that not many people use, but it's actually very useful if you know how it works. So let's imagine I have those raves selected with this SCV. This is pretty common, right? So I imprison this SCV to let me use magic box. And now if I am somewhere else on the map, let's say here, and I double tap 1, it will kind of go towards the middle of those 2 groups of units, right? Because it will, like, it's not exactly in the middle. The more raves I would have in this spot, the more it would be towards this position. So pressing 1 right now, it's not that great because it doesn't center me on those raves. But if I press Ctrl+C right now, it will get there. So the way this button works is that after pressing Ctrl+C, it will move you to the most advanced unit you have in your group. So for example, if I select BC and Rave, I press Ctrl 1, now I double tap, it will be in the middle, but Ctrl C will move me to the BC. In the case of Valkyrie and BC, it's actually strange because it considers Valkyrie to be more advanced, because now after pressing Ctrl C, it moves me to Valkyrie, but I guess this might be because of this setup, where Valkyrie is the last unit in the port. You can experiment with it a little bit, but for the most cases, you don't need this knowledge even. All you need to know is that, because usually you use this with Magic Box, so with the Wraiths, Mutas, yeah, I think this is the most important with the Wraiths and Mutas. You will have Mutas select with Overlord, so when you press Ctrl+C, it will center on the Mutas instead of in between of Overlord and Mutas. Okay, so let's start the section of some tricks and examples. Let's start with Zerg. And for Zerg, there is this common situation where you want to switch your Overlord, because this Overlord is right now right there in the action and it breaks your Magic Box. So what you would like to do in this situation is to press F2, have Overlord ready, just right click here, click Shift, deselect the Overlord, still press Shift, select another one, and you are done. If you do it quickly, your Mutas won't even go that far, so that's super nice to do that. Sometimes you have even two groups of units of Mutas with the same Overlord binded, like that. So now this Overlord is in two groups, and you can also like just deselect this Overlord from two groups, press F2, press this Overlord, Shift 1, Shift 2, and now you have new Overlord binded to this one. So you can change units like that very quickly. Another mechanical trick is something widely known, but I will mention it anyway because not everybody might know about it. It's called cloning. And mechanic of that is that you cast a spell with all units and then you deselect a unit and cast with all but one, and then you deselect and cast with all but two, and so on and so on, and you end up with one queen at the end. And this lets you to cast spells with every queen or vessel or anything else like that to different unit. So when doing that, the important part is to make the life for you a little bit easier and actually position the units you want to broodlink towards the bottom of the screen, because now if I have those units positioned like that, there is actually a big distance between this interface and units. But if I position it like that, this is actually perfect and I can quickly do that. So let's see how this works. And all tanks are dead. So that's perfect. And you should learn that as well. This will be a little bit off topic, but it's still an example where knowledge might be a little bit more important than mechanics itself. So there is a trick with lurkers where you can actually make them burrow faster, where you go somewhere and the trick is to press stop before you burrow. So notice how quick it is. So I will just walk, SR, because R is burrow for me. And they burrow instantly. Where if you just go and you press just R, they have to wait a little bit. So always press stop R for your lurkers. They burrow super quickly because of that. That was without stop. So with stop and without stop. Yeah, use it. That's free and very good. There will be two tricks at once. So first of all, if you want to stack lurkers, and you will right click on those, it's very hard to actually make lurker to align perfectly on another one. But there is a simple trick for that. You just use patrol and you press stop when it's above another lurker. There is always a pause when the lurker reaches its target, so you can do it like that. And now these are perfectly stacked, and Terran cannot know how many of them you have. Another trick is that when Terran is here, and they will always want to irradiate your defilers, so you can hide defilers in your Nidus and use camera hotkeys to quickly jump between the Niduses. So now, when you need a swarm in your other base, like here, you can just press F2 where this Nidus is, F3 is there. So you Ctrl+1 your defiler or something, you press F2, right click, F3, put swarm and go back to the Nidus. And now Terran cannot even kill your defilers. So that's very powerful trick. If someone utilizes that, it always makes me mad when I'm playing against him because I cannot do anything about it. Like, one defiler can keep base like that alive forever. This one applies for Terrans and Protoss, and actually Zergs as well, but they play drop style like less frequently, I guess. But Terran in TVT especially and Protoss in TVP use this very often. So the proper way of unloading from shuttles is you keep your HT shuttle in the back, of course, and then you press D behind the tanks, and when the shuttles will be over the tanks, you select individual shuttle and press unload on the shuttle, because as you can see, it will automatically unload everything. So like that, and then now you can cast storms with zealots inside and so on. Alternatively, of course, if you can do it better, then your shuttle with storm with high templars in it should go to the side, right, and unload outside of tanks. But it doesn't really matter. Usually those fights are very dynamic anyway, and everything will trade, or you will crash Terran with storms or something like that. But anyway, this trick with unloading units automatically is very important to learn as well. This is how recall actually works. So look, when I press recall, there will be like two phases. One, there will be like vortex over those units, and then vortex under the arbiter, and only then the units get teleported. So you see how there is this visible pause. This is very important when you are trying to recall Terran. What you can do is you can start recall when you are outside of the terrain you want to recall to. And by the way, always use screen hotkey, so like F2 or something. You have one your arbiter, F2 your army. I see this is happening all the time on streams. I see people who want to recall and they are looking for army on the minimap with their mouse. That's terrible. Don't do that. Just use your camera hotkey. This is so much better. So you can start your recall when still being like here. And majority of the army, like, this is coincidence, this shouldn't ever happen. But majority of your army will get there, and this is the reason ability to cast it outside of the terrain you want to recall to is the reason that no amount of turrets can actually stop arbiter, because those turrets won't be able to kill the arbiter before he can recall those units. So yeah, this is how you should do it. I see people having problem with this all the time, where they go and like they simply command STV to do a depot like that. And sometimes it may work, but sometimes it actually doesn't, especially if you put your STV from like there, and now the STV can get like glitchy and stuff. Basically what happens, it's unreliable. You never know how much time this STV will get to the place, and sometimes it can even happen that it won't get there at all. So what I like to do when I pull my SCV from mineral line, I just press to the gas, press to this last mineral, and it's always out immediately. So you can pick any SCV, go to the gas, go to your mineral, jiggle a little bit, and it's out. It's pretty useful trick to use in my opinion. This is already covered in my magic box guide, but I'll show you there as well. If you use your vultures like that and just place mine with every vulture, they will usually end up like that. Only one mine will be light. But if you want to do it efficiently, you lay mines with every vultures, like with all of them, but then you select individual groups and make them lay mines like that inside of a magic box. More on the magic box in my magic box video. This will apply for every race, but I'll show it on Terran example because Terran has to bind their units usually in a very specific way. So how to bind mess like that? So I'm using 1 for vultures, 2 for vultures, 3 for Goliaths and vessels, 4 tanks, 5 tanks. Usually this is how I do it. If there are any leftovers vultures or tanks, I will add them to 3, and then when my 3 is depleted again, then I'm using 6 after. So one very important trick is that tanks that are sieged are treated as different units than unsieged tanks. So as you can see, I'm control clicking those tanks, and those are different units. So this is already making our job very easy, because Every time you have a mess like that, you just siege 12 tanks. Those will be my 4, those will be my 5. Now I select all Goliaths with control, shift control with Vessel, that's 3. So now 3, 4, 5 are done. And now vultures. Usually I don't just control click on the vultures because you never know which vultures are gonna be selected, and it might be that, so for example, this vulture is now trapped and this one as well. So when I will try to go to the side, they won't go, as you can see. So it didn't help me much because now it's still a mess. So what I'll do instead is that I'll just box select those vultures, right click on the interface, add vultures that are like near them, go away, grab some on the side, and now I will go outside of my screen. And now, if I control click on those vultures, only those that are left can be grabbed. And that's it. Now I unsiege, and I have my setup. And if anything is not moving, I click on it and shift 3. And now this is under 3 as well. Yeah, so this is how I do it. This is one of my favorite tricks for Terran regarding like tricks, mechanical tricks or something like that. Scanners. Many people build them with, bind them with like 2 hands or something. I know that Koreans have to do that because the right control is blocked. I think what they do is they change the language on their keyboard from English to Korean with right control, but we can actually use right control to bind our stuff. Like if you want to bind something to 0, you can do that. And this is exactly what I utilize to bind scanners very efficiently. So at the beginning of every game, I will bind my command center in the main on every key. So I have my command center on 0. And then when I want to build my scanners, what I do is I press F2, I build scanner in my main. Then I go to my NAT with F3, I build scanner there. Now I select the scanner, I move my hand to the right side, I press right control and 9, and now I double tap 0, select this scanner and control 0, and now both scanners are binded. And it's super fast and easy. So I can literally do it like in half a second. So I go like bam, bam, that's it. That's binded. So that's super quick. I recommend this method very much. Okay guys, so that's it for today's video. Remember to every time when you have some problems, something is uncomfortable or inefficient for you in your own play, stop and think how you can improve that. Making those habits is very important. Your muscle memory should grow over time and you will get much better with practice. I will appreciate every like, comment and subscription, especially your ideas on improvement of mechanics. Maybe you have some ideas or methods I didn't mention, so please share them with me. And yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.